Welcome to Vital Biology. This is Padma. In this video, we will study about formed elements of blood. As in the previous class, we have discussed about the fluid component of the blood, that is plasma. So, up to now we understood that blood consists of mainly two components. One is the fluid part and another one is the cellular part. And this fluid part is called as plasma. And the cellular part actually consists of these formed elements. And in the entire blood, this plasma, that is a fluid part, alone constitutes about 55%. And the remaining is by the cellular components. So that is about 45%. So that 45% of formed elements are nothing but here blood cells, all the three varieties of blood cells, or otherwise these are also called as blood corpuscles also. Okay, blood cells are otherwise blood corpuscles. So there are three different varieties of blood cells. So one is the RBC, which are red blood cells. Okay, red blood cells, which are also called as erythrocytes. Okay, erythrocytes. As we know that the color of the blood is red in color, that is why they are called as red blood cells. Erythrocytes, in which erythro means red. So that's why cyte means cell. So the cells which have red in color, they are RBC. And WBC. Generally WBC means white blood cell, but that doesn't mean that the cells are white in color. But generally these cells are colorless. They don't have any sort of color. So, but in general, they are considered as the white blood cells. And even they can be considered as leukocytes also. Okay, as in case of plastids also, you will say chromoplast means color plastids. Leucoplast means which give white color. In the same way here, leuco means white, so that's why cytes. Leukocytes means white blood cells. Whereas the third variety of cells are called as platelets. Even they are also called as thrombocytes. Okay, thrombocytes. So this is about somewhat the different cell varieties. So now a little we will study about the formation of the blood cells. Okay, all these three varieties of cells are actually formed in bone marrow. Okay. Actually, all these are formed in bone marrow. But as we know that in case of embryonic stages, as in the embryos, still the bone marrow is not formed as they don't have a proper ossified bones. That is why in case of embryonic stages, the blood cell formation actually occurs in some other organs. Other than the bone marrow, it occurs in some other specific structures. But before going to that, first we should know the formation of blood cells, whether it is of RBC, WBC or platelets. So here we are saying the formation of blood cells is actually called as hemopoiesis. Okay, the term we are using, so that is hemopoiesis. Hemopoiesis. So hemopoiesis means blood cells formation. And the organs are actually which are involved in this blood cell formation are called as hemopoietic organs. Okay, hemopoietic organs. Okay, hemopoietic organs. And in case of embryonic stages, okay, in embryos, these hemopoietic organs are like yolk sac, liver and spleen. So these are act as the hemopoietic organ in case of embryonic stages. Whereas in the case of the adults, that function will take over by the bone marrow. Okay, which is generally present in the long and flat bones. So in them a specific type of a tissue is present. So that tissue is actually called as the hemopoietic tissue, which is present in this particular bone marrow and which results in formation of RBC, WBC and as well as the platelets. Okay. Now, suppose if we will speak about individual cell formation. Okay. So, here what we told, all together when we will speak, then the formation of the blood cells is called as hemopoiesis. But suppose if I'll talk about individual cell variety formation, like the RBC formation. Formation of RBC or erythrocytes is called as erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis. Okay. Whereas the WBC formation is called as leukopoiesis. And platelets formation is called as thrombopoiesis. Okay. So, like this, individually they do have a separate names. So, here what we can notice is the last a word which is there in this particular term, that is poiesis. So, poiesis means generally formation. If it is of RBC formation, that's why we add erythropoiesis. If it is of WBC formation, leukopoiesis. And if it is of thrombocytes or the platelets, yes, then they are called as the thrombopoiesis. But combinedly, all together when we will discuss, yes, then the blood cell formation is called as hemopoiesis. Okay. So, this is about a little the formation of the blood cells. Now, individual cell variety we will discuss. So, the first cell variety, that is of the RBC or otherwise erythrocytes. As previously also we have said, as these cells are red in color, that's why the cell name is red blood cell or otherwise erythrocytes. But what is the reason behind that red color? So, for that the answer is hemoglobin. As we know that RBC, red blood cell, contain one of iron containing complex protein. Okay, iron containing complex protein. So, that is hemoglobin. Because of that, as they contain that red color pigment, so that is why as they got the name as erythrocytes or otherwise red blood cells. The reason is as they consist of hemoglobin, which is a iron containing pigment, and as it gives that red color. Okay. And if we will go towards the each and every characteristic feature of this particular erythrocytes. So, as number wise, if we will see, these cells are most abundant in the blood. Okay, like we are comparing all these WBC, RBC and platelets, then what we will found is the RBC is greater in number. How much means? In a healthy individual, the average count of RBC is about 5 to 5.5 millions per cubic mm of blood. Okay, 5 to 5.5 millions per cubic mm of blood. So, that much large proportion of cells we can see inside the body, that is in blood. And as we have discussed, the formation is actually occurs in the bone marrow if it is in case of adults. And generally, as we said, red blood cells. So, cells means as these are the eukaryotic cells, definitely the eukaryotic cell means the specific nucleus, definitely it should be present. But in case of these RBC, okay, in case of RBC, okay, they lack nucleus. As we are talking about the mature RBC, okay, the cells which are functionally ready, in them the nucleus is actually absent. Whereas in the case of the immature RBC, we can see the nucleus. But during this maturation process or the developmental process, yes, definitely the RBC actually devoid of nucleus. So, that's why here we wrote nucleus is absent in most of the mammals. Okay. So, here the key word is most of the mammals, but not all the mammals. Okay. That means some exception is there. And as an exception, here we can study the example of camel. Okay, here we can study the example of camel. So, camel actually, in its mature RBC, it consists of nucleus. Okay, whereas in other mammals, actually nucleus is absent. So, here we can take this as one of a exception, that is in camel. And going towards its shape, generally in case of mammals, the RBC shape is biconcave shape. Okay, the shape of the RBC is biconcave shape. So biconcave means somewhat like this. Here we can see, like a dumbbell also. Okay, that's why they'll say dumbbell shape also, or otherwise on both sides it have that concavity. That's why biconcave shape of these cells we can observe. And going towards the RBC lifespan, as we know that every cell they have a specific time period or the lifespan. In the case of RBC also we can see 120 days. Okay, the lifespan is 120 days. After 120 days, what happened to this RBC? Simply they will be circulated to the spleen. Okay, after 120 days, okay, when they are like ready to complete their lifespan, simply they are circulated to one of a structure or one of a organ. So that is called as the spleen. And in spleen, the destruction of the RBC occurs. Okay, the RBC will be destroyed. So in RBC, it contains hemoglobin. As we told, a healthy individual should contain an average of 5 to 5.5 millions of RBC in like cubic mm of blood. The same way, in one of the healthy individual, 100 ml of blood should contain definitely about 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin. So that will be considered as a healthy condition. So that helps or supports the main function of the RBC. So that is transport of respiratory gases. If the hemoglobin is good, it maintains well, yes, definitely there will be a good supply of oxygen to the tissues. So that's why maintaining of RBC is important. The same way, to maintain that hemoglobin percentage is also to maintain a healthy condition in any of the individual. Okay, so that is about the RBC. So going towards the platelets. Platelets are also called as thrombocytes. And formation of thrombocytes is called as thrombopoiesis. Okay, thrombopoiesis. As we already said that the blood cell formation generally occurs in bone marrow. And in bone marrow, there are some special cells called as megakaryocytes. Megakaryocytes. And these megakaryocytes, suppose if this is a megakaryocyte, okay, this megakaryocyte will undergo fragmentation, like it will divide into small pieces, okay, and from each piece we can see from each of the piece one of the platelet is formed. So this is how the platelets are formed, by a fragmentation of a megakaryocyte. And what are these megakaryocytes? Means these are the special cells which are present in the bone marrow. Generally, in case of the healthy humans, what should be the average number of these platelets? So definitely in the case of the healthy individuals, the average number which they have to maintain, so that is about 1,50,000 to 3,50,000 cells per cubic mm of blood. Okay, 1,50,000 to 3,50,000 cells per cubic mm of blood. So this is the number in case of the healthy individual. And what is the function of these platelets? So if we'll go towards the function, generally like in a day-to-day life, chances are there that there may be a small injuries may occur, and during those injuries even the blood vessels may rupture. And when any of a blood vessel, suppose if this is a blood vessel and if it got damaged, and yes, definitely from the damaged sites the blood will come out. Okay, so if it continues, definitely it results in a life-threatening condition. So that's why definitely in the case of the small injuries, the cessation of the blood flow should be done. Okay, that means the blood flow should be stopped. The leakage of the blood should be stopped, and that process is actually called as blood coagulation. Okay, blood coagulation, or otherwise blood clotting. And this blood coagulation or a blood clotting, or otherwise it has a one more name, that is hemostasis. It is also called as hemostasis. Okay, blood coagulation or blood clotting, or otherwise hemostasis. See here, hemostasis. It's not a homeostasis. Homeostasis means maintaining a balance of water and ions in our body. But here this is of the hemostasis. The balance is maintained by preventing the loss of blood by clot formation. Okay, so blood coagulation or blood clotting or otherwise hemostasis. So that is the main function of these platelets. Okay, that means whenever any damage will occur, yes, definitely the platelets will release some of the factors. Okay, platelets have the ability to release some factors, and these factors actually give signals to some of the clotting proteins like fibrinogen, prothrombin. By receiving those signals, those proteins also involved, and along with these platelets, they actually form a clot. Okay, so which results in the blood clot formation or otherwise the process which we said as the blood coagulation. So that is the main function of the platelets. So in this class we have discussed about the out of 3 formed elements, that is of RBC, WBC and platelets. We have discussed about red blood cells and as well as the platelets.